What's good, everyone? Noam Wittenberg back with another video. And today we're doing something that has been heavily requested lately. It's to play against the Noam bot on chess.com. It's slightly comedic that we have the same name, so I think that's the reason why. Let's go d4 this game and see what he's made of. So as far as I know, he's supposed to be relatively old, and that he's supposedly played a lot of players in the past. So I'm assuming he's a very solid player. So I think if I play an unconventional opening along the lines of the Jobava attack, we're going to get him a bit out of his style. Let's see if my hypothesis is correct. Bishop f4. That's the idea of the Jobava, and then you later go knight b5 here at some point to put pressure on c7. That's one of the ideas. You go c6 right away, interesting. Now the idea of knight b5 isn't possible, but let's simply go e3, trying to complete the development of the bishop on f1 and the knight on g1, and queen b6 is played. This is why you should analyze your games. My opponents have gone queen b6 against me before, and here I have discovered the best move for white is queen d3, which if I wouldn't have analyzed my games I wouldn't have figured out, and now the move e5 comes and I need to think severely. I do believe e5 is potentially just a blunder. Intuitively I want to take on e5 with the d-pawn, attacking our opponent's knight, and if queen takes b2 then rook b1, with a double attack on the queen and on the knight. If I take on e5 with a bishop, maintaining a more flexible pawn structure but not gaining a tempi on the f6 knight, what am I gonna play? So it goes queen takes b2 probably, rook b1, queen a3, and here I can maybe play knight takes d5, though I'm not sure. It's sketchy. If it works it's a good move, but that is a big if. So let's see, bishop takes e5, queen takes b2, rook b1, queen a3, knight takes d5, because at least the idea after queen d3 here, and then queen takes b2 is rook b1, queen a3, knight takes d5. This is why you put your queen on d3 here as opposed to d2. A pretty deep idea that I discovered when analyzing some of my games and when I was curious what was the better move in the opening. Anyways, back to e5. Let's calculate this. This is a calculation task we're facing. So bishop takes e5, queen takes b2, rook b1, queen a3, knight takes d5. Oh, simply knight takes d5, yes, because now the queen on a3 is defended by the f8 bishop. So then d takes e is really the only alternative here. And knight e4 is played. Intuitively, I want to take on e4 in this position. And then there is the interesting move, queen takes b2 perhaps. Yeah, that could be potentially unpleasant with ideas such as bishop b4, for instance. So I gotta be a bit cautious here. If rook b1, knight takes c3 wins a piece, since if I take with the queen, bishop b4, and if I take with a pawn, then queen takes b1. So perhaps knight d1 is a necessity, though it looks a bit passive to go knight d1. I don't necessarily want to do that. Let's look again. So knight takes e4 in this position, queen takes b2. Yeah, I don't necessarily see a viable alternative for me in this position. This idea of e5 followed by knight e4 is very creative by our opponent, yeah? Never expected such madness in my entire life. I don't think... Okay, I'm gonna go knight d1. A very ugly and passive move, but keeping the pawn on b2 protected. Bishop g3, the only real option here, or else I'm losing the bishop on f4. And now I think I'm gonna have to spend another tempi on the queen, since knight takes g3 is threatening to win an exchange at least. So let's go queen b3. Trying to trade off queens. Yeah, let's take on g3, take towards the center. Queen takes b3, I'm gonna take with the c pawn. If I take with the a pawn, bishop takes c2 wins a pawn. Knight c3, trying to finish off development. Perhaps knight f3. Gaining an attack on the g5 pawn with a tempi and defending the e5 pawn. And how to proceed here? So I think I'm up a pawn, right? So unless my opponent has a very concrete idea in mind, white is the one with the favorable position. How to continue though? Long castles with the idea of bishop d3 maybe? That doesn't look too stupid, I might as well go for that. bishop d3 next to trade off the bishop pair. But then he maybe takes, goes g4, and wins the pawn on e5 in the end. Okay, so but then knight g5, and I take the pawn on h7 with an advantage, I think. Though it's not clear. It's not evident right away. So bishop d3, he takes it and goes g4. Yeah, not sure if I'm allowed to do this due to this g4 knight takes e5 idea, so perhaps we have to go for another option. Maybe rook h5 with the idea of rook takes g5. Winning a pawn here is not so stupid. And can I go bishop d3 now? Yes, isn't that very smart by me? And then I claim that after bishop takes d3, rook takes d3, the pawn on e5 is now defended by the knight. It does gain a tempi on the rook, so maybe it wasn't that smart. Yeah, let's see then. So bishop takes g6, h takes g6, rook h2. g4, I'm in time to go rook h1, which is an important detail. I think I'm gonna go for bishop takes g6 here. So maybe rook h2 right away deserves attention as well. Actually, maybe it's a bit more flexible even. A tough decision to make. Okay, I'll take on g6 and then go rook h2. And I think if g4 there... Oh, he takes with the h-pawn. I thought he might take with the f-pawn there, but this I'm pretty happy to see. Now I thought I go rook h1, and this checkmating idea of rook h8, rook h7 is not pleasant to deal with. Yeah, exactly, but if he has to play moves like this, then I am definitely satisfied with my position. Now I just need to be accurate with the conversion to win this game, and this game is ours. Ours for the taking. What to play here? Do I go e6 maybe? That looks semi-playable. What about rook h7? Is that a move? Okay, so rook h8 check, king f7. The other rook to h7, king e8. e6. Is that smart or not? I think this is the critical moment, by the way, which is why I'm spending so much time on this position, trying to figure out how to play here. Yeah, I think rook h8 looks correct intuitively. And then get the other rook to h7. And I think king e8 will be played in this position. And here I thought knight d4 or something along those lines should be a good move. If I go e6 takes on f3, takes on d7, king takes d7, takes on f8, that does not look like the best alternative, so I think knight d4 is what I'll go for. Knight takes e5, maybe knight e6 is a good move there. Now rook takes h8 looks good, I suppose. And here I'm up a pawn, which is pleasant. How to convert it to a win? Is e6 a good move or a bad move? That's the first question, I suppose. e6, bishop f6, rook g8, king e7. Not too convincing. What about knight a4 with the idea of knight b6? Is that smart? Could be. This is not that simple of a position, actually. He wants king f7 to g7, I suppose. Trying to untangle his own pieces, and I cannot stop that all that conveniently. So despite the pawn edge here, this is not a clean conversion by any means. Is f4 a good idea or not? I'll try it. My idea is that if he goes king f7, at least the pawn on e5 is now a protected passer. Maybe that's in my favor. And then I need to figure out how to proceed with the conversion. I'm up a pawn here, right? So I'm the one pressing for a win. I just need to figure out how to put the nail in the coffin here. Do I go knight a4, potentially trying to install a knight on b6? Or doesn't the knight really achieve anything there? This position is pretty closed, so it's not so easy to find the final decisive breakthrough here. I'm gonna go knight a4 with the idea of knight b6 for now. Okay, I have to move my rook, unfortunately. I'll put it on h1 then. And then we'll see what to do next. So perhaps if I put my king on d3, it's a slightly improved king's position. Let's go for that, I suppose. And then the question is there any way to break through this position? There should be. Maybe I can try rook c1 with the idea of knight c5. And then play for a3, b4. That looks semi-playable. But maybe he goes rook a7 here. Okay, now he at least... let's me take on c5. Interesting. So knight d4, knight e6. What to play here? Do I sidestep with the rook? Or do I have better alternatives in mind? I'm not sure. I'll go rook c3, I believe. So the conversion here is not so easy to find the final decisive breakthrough. I see an idea though. I think I have an idea now. It's kind of complicated. King takes d4. My idea is to go king c5. Wait, now he allowed my king to get suspiciously active, yes? He shouldn't have allowed my king this activity, I believe. Yeah, the rook on e4 doesn't do all that much. King c7. Now my active king is a very important factor in the game. He should have tried rook b4, I believe, here. After king c7 to defend the b7 pawn. Because now, finally, after king takes b7, I'm pretty confident that it's a winning position. Though you can never be sure, even here. Even here, he has some sort of trickery. So king takes b7, pawn takes b3. Rook takes b3, c5, king c6. d4, I think I'll go for it. Doesn't look completely obvious what's going on here. He goes c5 right away, which is interesting. Not what I expected. I'll take on a4 first, or how to convert this position in the best manner. Maybe I should take on c5. That looks semi-decent. And now I thought the intriguing idea of a4, though that might be overly creative as well. I'll play a4, rook takes a4, and take on d3. Take on d5, I mean, my bad. And if rook a2, I thought I go rook d2, keeping everything solidly protected. And then get the king back into the game, and now with 2 pawns more, I thought it's an easy win, rook d3. The pawn on b3 is under attack, which he suspiciously gives me. Then he gets some rook c4 idea, yeah? So maybe king c5 is the most precise move, not allowing any counterplay with rook c4. Let's take on b3 here, and then I'm ready to pre-move a capture on f4 next. On account of all the additional pawns, I can finally conveniently say that this position is winning. Without a doubt in my mind. King e6 maybe, or how to finish him off. Rook c3 could maybe be a plan. And then go e6. So even this is not clear if I should have done, yeah? Even what I did now I'm not sure about. I'll push e7, but maybe this was not the correct plan. Who knows? Is he gonna win back my pawn now? Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have given away the e7 pawn like this. I just fell in love with the idea of pushing it. Gonna have to go rook c7 to defend it, but this is not what I desired. That's for sure. King d5, let's play. Yeah, it takes on e3. This was a bit unnecessary by me. Perhaps it's still winning most likely since I'm ahead by 2 pawns, but there was absolutely no reason to do this nonetheless. b6, get that pawn to b7 now. But now I'm giving him a lot of counterplay, maybe. Or maybe not, since I just go e8, rook c8, and promote to the queen, yeah? Yeah, that should be sufficient, I think. Yeah, that's sufficient for sure. I just get his rook in the end of the variation, yes? Yes, there we go. Finally, I'm up a rook. I made such a mess out of this conversion, but finally we prevailed. Okay, king e5. Now to win this position is just a matter of the hand. Rook b1, get the rook to g1, take his pawn on g2, and in a moment or two it'll surely be game over. King g6, maybe just run with the pawn. Rook e2, just block his king. And then we can run with the pawn a little bit. Okay, rook e8 maybe, for instance, f7, f8. And there we go. I think I move like queen e7. getting the queen to d7, rook c8, queen b7, rook a8, and there we go, finally that's mate. Hopefully you enjoyed this gameplay, and if you did, I mean, I think it's fair to say that if the person who won this game, his name is Noam, then I think you have to subscribe if Noam won this game, right? Yeah, I think that's fair. And perhaps I'll follow my Twitch as well. Have a wonderful day, and see you soon.